Hello everyone. So I have these numbers. Can you find what is the maximum of these three numbers? If you said it's 5, that's correct. How about it should be 300, correct? So now it's great that we can find maximum of three numbers, like almost in microseconds. So what were the exact steps that you took to arrive at this answer? The first time I asked this question to a student, I remember he said, "What do you mean, steps? I know it is 5. These three numbers, seeing this, it should be 5. And these three numbers, seeing this, it should be 300. There are no steps." And then I asked him to really look at his thought process the next time, okay? Catch himself thinking through the steps of finding the bigger number. So let's try to do the same thing. So now also, almost instantaneously, we can just say it is 5,000. But if we were to catch ourselves and really think about the steps we took to find this answer, we would be able to write step by step of the things that we did in order to get this answer. So what good is that? Like, why do we need to write these steps? After all, we can find a maximum of three numbers in just fraction of second. Why do we need to write the steps? Imagine if you have not just three numbers, but if you had 300 numbers, 3,000 numbers, 3 million numbers, would you still be able to find the maximum of 3 million numbers in a fraction of a second? No, it's hard, right? But we can get help from our computer to do that. Think of computer like your niece or nephew, whoever you have. The computer just knows the number, right? 3 and 2, and it knows that 3 is greater than 2. You can check whether 3 is greater than 2 or not, but it doesn't know how to find the maximum as yet. You, being his uncle or his aunt, you know how to find the maximum because you've been doing that for many number of years. But this little boy, he doesn't know. Imagine when you first started to drive, how was it? You had to remember so many things. You first get into the vehicle, you put the keys in, you start the car, you press on the brake pedal, and then you have to like release your accelerator and the brake at the same time. There were so many tiny details that were happening. I remember when I first started driving the car, I would be so conscious of every single step. I would like not talk to anybody so that I could just focus on my driving. But fast forward after so many years now, when I get into the car, I almost never think about driving. I just drive, right? I don't think about the minute steps. Your niece is yourself when you started to drive the car. So you have to break it down into steps. So I'm going to take an example for us to think about the steps, okay? I don't want my steps to be closely tied to these numbers, right? I want my steps to be generic enough so that it will work for any set of numbers, any set of three numbers that I give. So let's just, instead of taking these numbers as the raw values, let's give it a name. Say the first number is A, the second number is B, and the third number is C. So now for us to think about this step, it's easier if we just assume that A is some value and B is some value and C is some value, so that we can write about the steps and think about it logically, right? So given these input variables, how do we find the max, right? So let's write step by step. Okay, so what are we doing here? Let's catch our thought process, right? As we are thinking through this. So when we are presented with these three numbers, we first look at this. Our goal is to find maximum, right? And return that. We don't know what maximum is yet, but we first look at this number and we see that it's the only number. We don't have any other number to compare it with. So let's just assume maximum is this number, right? So maximum is the first number that we get. Remember, we haven't seen the other numbers yet. Now we move our eyes and scan the next number, which is this, B. So the question arises now, did my maximum change? Is my new maximum B? Or is it still A? In other words, did my maximum change or not when I look at the new number B? So how do we answer that? Like, we look at the value, right? 5,000. Is it bigger than the previous maximum that we have seen so far, which is 2,000 in this case? If this was bigger, then your maximum changes. Your new maximum is this, not this anymore. Correct? And then we proceed the process. Like, we move our eyes to the next number and we see this. Right? So now again the same question. So did my maximum change? In this case, since C was less than 5,000, which was the previous maximum, our maximum did not change. Okay. So now we have to look at the next number, but there is no next number. There are only three numbers. So what was the last maximum? Was here, and it was 5,000. So we return that value, 5,000. So let's try to write it down into steps. So first we assume that our maximum is A, and then we are checking if the next number B is greater than the maximum value seen so far. If so, our maximum is B. And then we are checking, doing the same thing to the next number C, and check whether it is greater than the maximum so far, and only if so, we change the maximum to C. For this particular set of values, it did not change. But for some other set of values, it could change. So our steps are more generic now. Okay, so let's try to code up this algorithm that we have come up with, right? I just threw this word algorithm. So what does this mean? So an algorithm is nothing but a set of steps that you can give to the computer to achieve a task. In this case, you wanted to find a max of 3 numbers. You gave these steps. You taught your computer how to find maximum of 3 numbers in these 4 steps. And that is the algorithm that you have given your computer. So let's try to code it up in a simple language like Python. Okay. So click on this new file and then say find max of 3, something like this, and then .py, and then let's start to write this series of steps, right? Like find max, right? And there are 3 numbers. I'm going to call it A, B, and C, and I'm going to return a max value. So this is supposed to return the maximum of these three numbers. So first we assumed maximum is just A because that's the only number we have seen so far when we are scanning from left to right. So now let's see if the next number, which is B, is greater than the maximum that we have seen so far. If so, then we update the maximum. And then we look at the next number. Is it greater than the maximum that we have seen so far? If and only if so, you update the maximum to the C. Otherwise, you don't do anything. You don't do any change to the maximum. Okay, that's it. So if you return the maximum now, hopefully this maximum value should be the bigger of the three values. So how can we test this? So let's pass the same thing, 5000, no, 2000, 5000 something, right? Okay, 2000, 5000 and 20, some set of values, right? And let's print the maximum. Let's catch the answer here and then let's just print that answer. Okay, and in fact we can say, I think this is how we do it. You print a variable within a string by using this F, and then these flower brackets indicate that this is actually a variable and not just any other string character. Okay, so let's see this. We are going to test this out. So what happens? So it is printing maximum is 5000 here, okay, which is the correct one. So what if I change this to this? 200. Perfect. It seems to work. Okay, cool. We have written our piece of code. So yeah, here this is a variable because its value can change. As you can see, A and B and C can have different values depending on what I pass here. And max can also have different values. Since its values can vary, these are called variables. And this whole algorithm, I've encapsulated that into a small box and call that box as find max. So I've given a name to this whole thing as find max so that I can just call that, right? Instead of doing all these steps, all I have to do is just the name. Then the function will get executed. So this is a function, and these are all the parameters, arguments that I pass to this function, and you get the return value and you print it out.